Hello and welcome to the A. Marie Speaks podcast, the video version, the Lost in Transition seasons, I guess. I've lost count of exactly which session this is or episode. And in fact, it's sort of a different topic than I'm currently running with on my channels. So it's a little out of the box, a little, personal. I recorded a video. It's turned out to be way longer, typical, right, of me. And I'm not sure if I'll air it or not. But I thought in the interim, I might do this sort of brainstorming session, kind of parenting through the apocalypse-ish talk here today. Oh, it's March 14th, 2025. And like I said, this is a podcast recording, although I've lost my platform and haven't found a new host yet, so this is sort of just those in-betweens. I'll be airing them on YouTube and BitChute, so thank you if you're listening there and find me there. Welcome, and thank you if you're new. If you're not new, then glad to have you back. Means almost more to me that you return, you know. Anyways, without further ado, I don't want to talk around the world in my limited time here. I am hoping to bring up a little bit about current events, not new events in the world, so to speak, but the lack of new events in the current world is really the focus, and the frustration with that, the sort of stalemate kind of I don't know, Groundhog Day, that movie, you know, 51st Dates. Anybody seen that one? Splash, is that the one where she forgets who she is? I forget. No, I'm wrong. That's a mermaid movie. But there was one with like a mother, and I think she forgot who she was out on a boat. Anyways. So random. I think the awkwardness of the lack of change into this strange new world, the brave new world we're all a part of here nowadays, it's something I just felt to get off my chest, wanted to talk a bit about. And I don't typically, and I personally, you know, I'm not one to complain. I'm not one to listen to others complaining about things, especially when there's no solutions to be had, you know. I'm more of a silver linings kind of person. And so to look and be confronted with things that it's a waiting game of that, or it seems really far off on the horizon in the distance, and it's just not really culminating to much. It's so slow, painstaking. Yeah. Sort of lost myself there just describing the unhappiness of it. But yeah, which is why I don't really go there or like to make videos around it or talk too much about it, because we all know it. It's as plain as day, pretty much. For anybody, you know, watching my channel or finding my videos, I mean, my content, really. If you've beaten the algorithms all the way here, currently we're on the same wavelengths. Obviously, universe is running us parallel, coinciding our content. So we must be on that same curve, at the same bend, right? Than some others who, for some reason, it's just more comfortable, I guess, to stay stuck in this sort of unresolved state of false habits, patterns, and beliefs and ideologies. You know, for me, the biggest thing these days, and the largest way to kind of say what the split is and show how, the division is really truth and lies. It all comes down to that, to me. And I find myself a person who is seeking truth and common sense through, sovereign discernment, a level-headed way to look at the world, and to not run away with potentials or assumptions, Although out there in the world in the last couple decades, it's really been encouraged for everyone to sort of run away with things and to really promote whatever badges and ideologies that you have, and that you should be really proud of them and really showcase them. They are you, to be and to plaster them around and to push them onto others and to weigh them against what others are. And I think since that way wasn't really my mode of operation, even before BC, before Corona, I think it really assisted me to be able to move through these times in the split into sort of a more positive plane of a coordinate plane, right? Plane of existence and potentialities and reality, into better, more comfortable life experiences for myself and my family in the last 5 years, to where we really have seen and taken great strides, seen flourishing and growth and blossoming, while others are experiencing quite the opposite. It's a place of gratitude that I stand in, and thanksgiving, for myself and for my husband, and for having, a courageous sense of self-worth and to stand for our truth through the tests that have been in the last few years. I'm not, although they were blatant and quite easy for me, myself, to make back then in the moment, and I understand that it wasn't so for everyone. And in fact, I understood right at the time and back then that it wasn't so for everyone, and that it was really hard for some others, especially when to see how clean cut it was for me. And how confident I was in that, it put a lot of people off. My direct family even, and so I just chose not to really push that on them either. I just chose to leave it as a buffer zone for them to know where my standing was, that I wasn't doing any of that, and just, not to bother with me about it at all. And then that just created this sort of zone of, impenetrable space, and an elephant in the room, area you can't have conversations through. And especially now, it's like 5 years later, and it's still, there's tons of this plexiglass, metaphorical, way more serious than the ridiculous attempts of whatever they were doing with the silly plexiglass they put up all over the damn place. I thought that was such a joke. What a farce and foolish waste of money and a blatant mockery of intelligence in front of everyone's faces to put those up dangling from chains and in between cashiers at checkout lanes and but anyways, this real metaphorical, more real yet metaphorical plexiglass place and space that's been created in my life, and I'm sure in many others, and I know others that I've talked to, and of course, my husband and I speak about this, but don't really have any other friends really, except for a couple, I can count on one hand, who get this sort of split and see the world for what it is, and have not taken any of the steps towards the degradation and the choices of sort of the 3D negative, and instead have held their ground here and taken more positive steps, towards their health and well-being, and to protect those things and to stay in the heart center and more 4D empathy and health and wellness and higher frequencies, working to maintain those and putting that as a priority for themselves and their families if, they have them, those that they care for directly. Of course, it's so difficult because you can't make infringing suggestions or commands or requests of others, even immediate family members like siblings, parents, people who are grown, other than your committed life partner and your own children. And you have to keep their age in mind as well, and allow them to have a co-created experience to put forth their intuitive notions about what's right for their health and wellness as well. They have to be a part of that choice, and for all of them and all of you together to be on that journey and making right choices from right places. It's really rare to come by these days. And so, yeah, if you're listening out there and you're like that and you're like me, and us, love it, thank you. We are not alone, though the road is lonely. That's my sort of tag phrase for parenting again through the apocalypse. Excuse me. And what a road it's been to be guiding children and even just living these days through these last few years, aware and awake, while others are so blind and ignorant and just recycling the same old things or caught in these giant liar loops of cognitive dissonance, circling around a bunch of nonsense, and entangling their lives and really ruining their health and wellness at the same time. It's such degradation. It's really difficult to bear witness to. I was talking a lot about that in the video that I made. How long do we do that and for what reasons? And really, where's your self-accountability and your sovereign right to positive life and enjoyment of your moments when you go and step over there and bear witness and, jump down into these scenarios where you're forced to interact with people who are choosing that for themselves? It's not any of my right or a bother to me or, an available choice of mine that I should go and disrupt what they're doing, And in fact, when you try to, whenever you do, you're usually met with a lot of deterrence. It always ends up in a negative sort of combat of some sort. And so again, it turns into sort of the backing out, the checking out, the isolation, and choosing to just be peaceful separately and to live in your own ways, live and let live. And that's what I've really chosen to do. But again, it's created that sort of buffer zone, this, plexiglass. Air can't pass through it. It's interesting. It reminds me of a poem I wrote so long ago. I might post it actually over on Telegram. But Yeah, because I can't think of the exact words of it right now. I can only think of a snippet of it, and it doesn't do it justice whatsoever. But it likens truth to being, yeah, like plexiglass, a millimeter thick, so thin you can see right through it, but we could never touch. Uh, you know, and life in general, anyway, our inner life is like this. So we really shouldn't be too upset or allow ourselves to sort of wallow in this isolated, lonely hearts club, melodramaticness either. Because, in fact, the inner world, the inner journey, and our life's full purpose from birth to death, the full journey, is a one-man show. It's just you looking out your eyeballs, right? You're the one who is the one held accountable at the end. You're the one who passes, and it's only you there. Just like you came through the world alone, right? And if we could remember and honor that with sacred, vivacious, courageous ownership, right? Of sovereignty and a right to this great journey, and own the birthright of life and the adventure and chance of your one great go at it. What would you do if? And this is it. Choose your own adventure. You get to read it and choose it as we go here. So live it as best as you can. If we had this notion in remembrance all the time, nobody would be working at rat race jobs. No one would be donning off their beautiful golden coat of sovereignty to bow down in servitude to some meaningless negative system for a paycheck, But again, there's another example of the original inversions. Although we have a great grand amplification happening nowadays, and whether or not, we could talk about the purposes and the timeline and, the archonic system in general, and where their ascension's at, and all of those things, how they come into play in this. But I think those conversations are for another day and another podcast in general. But for now, 2025 is really turning out to have an energy to me of course of the 9 and of this threshold of endings and new beginnings, and endings being new beginnings having endings of old things in them, how we move forward and what we take with us. It reminds me of the initial foresight that I was sort of given and have felt that in 2019, that whatever was happening, that the false start that I had felt beforehand in 15, 16, that fizzled, that it was beginning, but in a different way than anticipated, and that it would be 2026 would be a culmination point, and 2023 would be a midway. And I thought it was a peak with a trough initially, but as 2022 came through, I started to realize it is not a peak trough event at all, like a double helix or like a spiral. I was just confused by the orientation, and I had the perspective incorrect in the information, because it's a spiraling upwards, downwards, ascension and descension. And so there's no peak and trough. Well, there are many peaks and troughs, but I was, in my limited sight, I saw it a bit incorrectly. But it was a mid-2023 was a midway point, and 2026 is going to be a fresh start to something new, and it is a 1 year. And that was something that I didn't really completely unlock either at the time back then, 2019. I wasn't thinking numerically so deeply. However, of course now I am. And now I can see how it's a threshold into something new to start off with for 2026. But of course, it's same concepts, just graduated into the 10th place. The one it's 10. 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 6 gets us to 10. And so everything that we have built, the original one that this all has been built on so far, the 2025 is the 9 of, it's moving upwards into a greater volume or deeper discovery within the same concepts and themes. And so it seems to me that this is a great time to sort of come out again and to reach out and to, like I'm doing here today, sort of exposing normalcy of social connections, friendships, everyday life, and sharing, and the individual journey, and really looking to see if there's others out there who are doing similar practices, who have been keeping up with similar practices or are looking to get back into them, and who have been feeling great isolation over these last 5 years now. There's lots of positive, lots of growth that has come in my own wonderful bubble world, and I'd love to be able to speak with others as well who have seen great growth in their world too, because I see, here and there, random social media of people doing really well, homesteading, finding great hobbies and habits, teaching their children in different ways, living in different ways, looking for truths of their own kind and speaking out their own truths. So it's obvious it's happening, but it's just that I think those of us who are really organic and intelligent and alive and awake and activated here have to take some measures to notice each other and to reach out again, because there is a lot of dead content. There is a lot of bots and trolls and oversaturation of inorganic artificial intelligence, and it's rotten, and we know what it is. It's not hard. There's no specialness in saying, oh, we recognize AI, or you can pick it out, or there's a bunch of bots just answering, or full of bots in Telegram channels, and nonsense of copy and pasted click farm nonsense, spam messages and stuff. We can weed through it and just create our own organic places and pay no regard to those, because they're easily identifiable and they're laughable. We don't have to make our whole focus about paying any attention to them either, or trying to take them down, or trying to disassemble or whatever, disassociate completely, because it's almost impossible to disassociate or want to take those things down. They're pretty integral to that mainstream archonic matrix overlay in the whole system. So where we're sort of birthed and pushed into this and we're just here, there's exposure that happens no matter what, So thinking that we can or will or should only start doing X, Y, and Z when all of those things are gone or not a problem anymore or no longer occur, I think is, not the best expectations. And hopefully others will see the same thing and feel the same way. We don't have to let them rain on the parade. We could do our own things in our own ways, and create better comments and create better content and shareable spaces wherever they might be, I've heard a couple of different sort of videos of people like What's Her Face and Amazing Polly and some others talking about the lack of honest, organic interaction and commenting available on a lot of the streaming platforms. And the sort of desire to bring back, real conversations and real people and the realness of it all. And I feel like that is an echo of what I was sensing and sort of a validating point to making this podcast and to speaking up about what I'm feeling and thinking of, with all that's ahead and everything that's already taken place, I feel no better time than the present to be embracing organic exchanges and real live conversations and relationships and people around us. Even, on the internet. There's such a giant hype to dilute and distort what the internet is, I think, for great purposes. And as much as the archonic overlay might have even created the internet or boosted their version of the internet on purpose with these control mechanisms and it's sort of thinking they're setting snares and traps and they are, of course, it is. But I think also it's run out of their control. I don't think they have as much control over it as they portray that they do, because it's infinite consciousness running throughout its funhouse. And whether it wants to admit it or not, free will of choice, every potentiality is still available to creator consciousness as it makes its way through their funhouse. They will make it seem like their presented choices are the best or the only ones. But in fact, you always have 360 degrees of choice available to you as you're going through the funhouse. You could easily turn around and just walk right out. You can easily, ruin it, break a wall, or you can pretend to be scared by the whole thing and wowed by all of the magic tricks and the illusions and allow yourself to really become, like I mentioned a lot of times in my talks, a good audience member. The Matrix theater shows. But that's your choice again. And if, and that kind of shows their cards and shows where the power's to be had at, because the truth of it is always the power's in the individual. If they're awakened and activated enough to actually resource and utilize the capacity of consciousness and of awareness that they do own and have bestowed within them. Many are fooled and tricked out of understanding what it is or seeing it or being too scared to light it up or having inverted operations within the systems, and so they have really incorrect negative systems running and they get poor results over and over again. But the fact is that you're copying incorrect role models and then putting forth bad directions into your own reality workings and then wondering, why you're not popping out with good results. But again, each one of us individually, we know these things. They're unspeakable truths within ourselves that I think really draw down to the root of the experience here, or source or God or the infinite observer, the great architect of it all, however we want to look and call that, set the parameters around what that could be, the entity or being, or a word that we don't even have to express the capacity of that wholeness. I'm down for calling it whatever, but God sometimes is simple and quick, or source, or inner self and knowing. Now I've gotten around in a bit of a ramble and I'm hoping to close out soon and gotten onto a tangent. But if you are listening and you are, and then you're happy to hear probably, right? Because so I feel this is, my own, of course, expressions of longing and desires, but I know others are out there because when I express them, I get confirmation from others. Oh yeah, I feel that way too, Um, sort of like a disappointment in the lack of depth, the lack of quality of creations, conversations, relationships out there. A lot of people are just sick and tired of small talk, unnecessary nonsense, but they also don't know how to break the ice. They also don't know how to take it deeper because there's a lot of sort of bad hype or taboo around, you know, taking things too deep. Others will be offended or put off by it or something like that. But I don't think that's the case. And in fact, where we see such extreme propaganda plastered all over the place now with these superficial desires and affinities or fetishes even, it's just there's such a perversion and an over amplification on some of these things, right? And they're all over the place out there. People plastering, their sexuality right in front of your face for no reason. It's not even a relevant quality. I don't find it to be, and so why not? Why can't we take things spiritual? Why can't we talk truth? Why can't we take it there and be deep or be heavy or whatever? When everybody else in these superficial, more disgusting ways get to take it as far as they would like to and have been and shove it all in our faces or put bumper stickers all over the place or whatever the case is in their way to infringe subconsciously upon the population, you know. I just think now's the time to start doing it, to start really being like, okay, well, I would just want to have real conversations. I do want to have connectivities and communities where we live life more fully, where we talk about mind, body, spirit, complex of the realness of whole being, and we honor those parts of ourselves and others, and we want the best in whatever kind of way they come forward as well. Now, this is, I won't get off, actually. I'm going to have I'll do a whole other talk about future positive systems and how interactions can and must take place in more diverse ways, allowing exchanges to happen in and from any kind of angles and directions, but also not over amplifying any of them, not giving any worth more than the other, but allowing all to be present finally. No more weighted statistics, no more grading on curves, just let's look at all of it. Get the data, please. No redactions, all of this stuff is it's lies upon lies. It's skirting around, chasing tails with delusions and illusions. It's manipulation. It's the negative system trying to save face. And yeah, I'm speaking about a bunch of different things at once here. How do we not anymore? And for those who get it, great. I love it. And I'd love to hear from you, those of us who get it, because like I said, I know we're out there. We have to just not be discouraged to back into corners by the commotion, the nonsense and chaos that all the parrots are blasting around and blabbering throughout the matrix right now. The reason they're amplifying the volume so much is because they're losing control. They can't bear with the fact that if we actually connect and start conversating over their static, what will happen? Because they will lose, everyone will lose interest in their choices, basically. Everyone's going to realize their choices suck and that they are not actually the only choices. And that's the end all. And I think, yeah, we're getting there. I'm certainly been fed up with it. I haven't been interacting, and it's like I started off this entire talk with, and I made that other video, which I think I might put up in a day to come or so after this, after my Bible studies and things.
But this is, the choice had for me was quite clear, and I chose disassociation. I'm not going to be stepping into servitude, bowing down to negative systems, and going into places self-harm in order to interact with something. I'm sorry, nothing is so important that I need to hurt myself or be a role model as to teach my children self-harm. Even worse, to literally abuse them by forcing something harmful upon them, or by manipulating their minds into thinking that that there's threats all around them, that they're a threat to community, that they don't have within themselves, a miraculous miracle machine of the immune system. The body vessel is something less than it is. I'm not going to deplete and dilute the truth that I happen to know from within and have seen again and again confirmed to me, that the body's a miraculous healing machine, and that intuitively this infinite intelligence already knows what to do and can do what needs to be done if left alone. And we can learn so much from it if we choose to actually observe and learn from it, instead of diving in and designating purpose based on function without even understanding what the purpose within the whole really even is. It's really silly. But there's a lot of really silly, really strange things happening in the upside down world. And those of us, like I said sort of before, I think I said in the video, not in this podcast here, but about so many are standing upside down on their heads, like looking at the picture saying, come on, this is the picture. Don't you see it? It's that picture of the house. The roof's there. The yard is there. You don't see that. And we're trying to say, yeah, we see the whole thing, but it's upside down. You're standing on your head. Don't you remember what's going on that's incorrect from the beginning? In fact, you're hurting yourself by doing that. Can we just stand upright and stop fighting about layered loop false premises? Because when you set up a false premise to prove fact upon like that, and you negate the initial setting that you're upside down, you say you can't look at that, that's outside the parameters, that's paranormal, it doesn't belong in the study, it's something that's not even mentioned, or please just don't even notice it. It's a lie from the start. So how are we getting anything valuable out of it? It's so frustrating. But for those of us, who are just regular old, seeing for the truth and sick and tired of trying to bother with any of that, we can live and let live, I guess, and see what comes forward out of what we're doing over here. Which is, what I've been focusing on the last couple of years, doing my own inner work, doing my own creative content, and, building up things for later that if and when more like-minded people are around, that, have an accumulation of items to talk and share about, to cultivate together. But that's the real point as well, is like the point is to be shared and to have perspectives given back, to be able to create conversations, to have communities built around the standards, and to see what happens, and to allow growth of manyness in different directions and positive sharing, but I do feel like, again, it's coming, and that the fact that the cracks and the poke through, it's the blossoms are being called forth within me, I think is a great sign to what's at hand ahead. And for now, to just even do little bits of reaching out, even to be able to just put this podcast out, I think in itself is quite the offering at this time. I'm generally ahead of curves, and I have to be where I'm at as well. I know there's others there. I don't think I'm kind of a solo lead in any sort of way. And in fact, I hear likenings to the wavelengths that I'm at now. So I know this, certainly, I'm not alone. But to have more consensus would be wonderful. So yeah, I think I will leave this blabber session here. Thank you so much if you have listened to this content. Oh, that's the other thing that I was going to mention. I think I'll just do a whole other video on it because I talked a small bit about AI and artificial content, but I really like to talk about what it means to sort of creatorship and making our own stuff and what it means to designing memes, sharing information, writing blogs, writing music, like this, podcasts and interviews, and even what kind of content we're talking about when we're sharing. So much of the content is geared out there right now towards AI. And so much of the stuff that I see out there, even I recently, like, I have had Substack for a while, but never my own thing on there. I put a couple of my blogs on there, and I was looking around, and it's just it's strange. It's such a strangely saturated environment. You can't tell whether it's do-gooder bots or real people or copy and pasted. Is it marketing managers? Do we have teams of admin only and no real actual creators doing sort of live connectivity? And does anybody run their own platforms? And the ones that sort of might manage their own platforms, are you having AI sponsor a bunch of this stuff, filler content, and a lot of the images, just the thumbnails and the quick blurbs, they resonate to me as artificial content. Algorithmically selected by language modeling. They don't ring true to organic imagination, to intuitive thinking, to human speech. And I'm like, at first, for the last couple of years, now I'm going on. I'm making a whole different video on this. I'm not going to get into it now. I'm sorry. If you're interested in that, definitely let me know. If you've got opinions already, like you have things to say about that, I'd love to hear them. Send me emails. Put a comment down below here, or find me on Telegram. Send me a message, and I'll definitely be on a different podcast pretty soon on this because it's such a huge topic. But again, I tend to get a bit ranty, complainy on those kind of subjects, which is why I try to steer myself away from making a lot of these more just ramble sessions, because I like to provide solutions and I like to move on. But it's like, it's taking so long. The clock's like ticking so slowly that those of us who see what's going on, what else can we do but make commentary about it, as nobody's really totally ready for solutions yet. And until majority of the whole is ready for solutions, it's not fair to even start planning solutions. This is what I'll talk about in the positive systems and futuristic thinking kind of thing, and a separate podcast again, because we can't, those of us who sort of awakened already and shifting towards positive things, we build our own positive systems. We troubleshoot and learn through our techniques of what works for us at this point. But we can't start micromanaging or planning, setting stakes for those who will come later yet. They're going to have brand new input into the atmosphere at the time that they're divinely meant to put their tone into it. So we manifest, we cultivate, we grow sort of a base level foundational garden parts of the place here in the now. But we have to remember, it's all blueprint architecture. Others are coming and they have a right into space that's unyet plotted. And we shouldn't be infringing on that because it's divinely set that they come in the time. Creator consciousness of infinite intelligence in the blueprint of all is coordinating that space for later. We can't infringe and imprint energetics over there yet. That's what archonic infringement is. That's the negative alignment, and we don't want to be dragging that into newness. We don't want to be setting that out there later that nobody can touch or go over there because we've already marked the territories. That's not how positive life works over here. And if we're bringing entanglements from the past into our new lives, well, sorry to disappoint you, but you're just waking up to another level of the sidewalk show. You're still in the matrix, my friend, as most of us really are, because what is humanity? We can't really get outside of it at this point, I don't think. But what we can do is do the good work as far away as possible, and each time we wake up and remember there's strings attached, or we've brought something we're bringing something along with us, we work to turn around, unknot, set that free backwards. Snip the ties and watch it just go away, because it's a fishing line with pressure on it. And as soon as you cut that tie, it's going to go right back to the reel. Or it's an elastic band that's going to go back and snap that shadow aspect in the matrix overlay system, because it's bound by laws. There's electromagnetic plasma workings between all the ether creations here. There's, rules to the game and levels here. You need to be accountable for what you're bringing forth with you, though, and do that great work. That's the time and setting for the now. But I think if all of us could connect eyes out here as we get further and further away from the sidewalk show, we'll notice who's been doing the work and what's going on. We can help each other and form camaraderie, companionship as to those who have been doing the strong, long work. Because there's different stuff at hand. It doesn't mean that we can't help others or newcomers, and we're not all still students ourselves. We really are. We shouldn't be trying to prop each other up and give ourselves these sort of validated master badges, degree each other, and go around knighting each other that we're some new, separate, ascended, earthly, new earth peoples, thinking that, that's again dragging in these archonic slave master directionality, and we don't want to do that. I don't want to create a space and place like that. So yeah, really got to cut it now. I've gone too long, 45 minutes. Thank you so much if you have listened. Be sure to check my channels. If you are finding me over on YouTube or BitChute, you can find Telegram at Amarie Speaks over there, where is all my links to keep up with me on daily things. Or of course my website, amariespeaks.com, and that is ever changing. I'm doing sort of facelifts over there, changing up things. So definitely, if you haven't been there in a while, check it out. Or if you've been there recently and it's a little messy and things are shifting around and changing, or there's dead links, my apologies in the forefront here, but I am changing up things. I've been, trying to move towards aligning free service in more obvious ways, and sort of teaching and talking about what that means in more obvious ways on my site too. So that, of course, has changed sort of the services that I offer and what I'm calling it and all that kind of stuff. So bear with me while that's all sorted through. And as always, thank you so much for your contribution to the collective. We wouldn't be the same without you. And same to me, thank myself for this great service and for the podcast. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll tune in next time. And in the meantime, find me all the places already mentioned. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening. And I'll see you next time.